My favourite Garmin bike computer from the last generation was the Edge 830. Now we have the new 840. Specifically, I have the new 840 for yes sir, I have bought one, so it's time for another comparison. Strap in for some similarities, discover the differences, set your brain to receive mode as I answer straight into your eye and ear holes the all-important question: should you buy the Edge 830 or the Edge 840? In the words of my local butcher, Mark, let's get into the meat of the differences. The Edge 840 user interface has been upgraded. The home screen is more dynamic. It comes with a series of default widgets providing some at-a-glance info, your last ride overview, a compass, the weather. And you can add more of them depending on your persuasion. For a laugh, I've added training status, generally showing undertrained, VO2 max, and cycling ability. Who knew there was a not sure you have any classification? Where possible within a feature, Garmin seems to have upped the design snaz factor. The summary available just after you've finished a ride is a bit funkier. The maps seem a little prettier. Garmin hasn't gone overboard though. The 840 still has a recognisable Edge UI. The classic ride screen with all the data fields in a grid is pretty much the same, maybe with a slightly larger font size and a bit less white space. A welcome improvement. The 840 is just, overall, a bit more interesting to use. Talking of data screens and fields, with the 840 you can now add and change them directly within the Garmin Connect phone app. They then update automatically on the 840 device. On the fly, ride changes are still easier on the 840 itself, but it's a handy feature if you spend your evenings polishing your perfect data screen setup from the comfort of your sofa. Whilst the Edge 830 does have the quick access menu, which is retained on the 840, pulled down from the top edge of the screen, it remains almost fully reliant on list-based menus, and submenus, and sub-menus. To be sure, the 840 does have text-based menus. It wouldn't be a Garmin without them. But the overall user experience feels much less reliant on scrolling back and forth, desperately trying to remember where you saw that all-important feature or setting. The 840 version of ClimbPro is better than on the 830. There are a few presentational differences. The Edge 840 has more shades of gradient colour, with each climb broken down into a greater number of individually coloured sections. In other words, a bit more pro. More importantly, where the 830 ClimbPro only kicks in when you're following a course, the 840 version will pop up whenever you start a climb, whether you're following a course or not, which puts the 840 broadly in line with the equivalent climb-specific features on the Hammerhead Karoo 2 and the V2 variants of the Wahoo Element. You can search for nearby climbs using the Edge 840's Climb Explore page, which is easily reached as one of the pull-down quick access screens. Climbs are also highlighted when you move around the map screen. To be clear, the original ClimbPro on the older 830 is great. I was and still am a big fan. Anything to help quieten the "this climb will break me" demons. But the 840 version is a real hero feature. I likes it a very lot. It's a major slap on the bum for the newer device. The Edge 840 has solar charging and the older 830 doesn't. It's an option on the 840 though, so you don't have to buy it. I did, because I am a prime plonker. As the name suggests, the battery on the 840 solar replenishes when the sun shines on it, and to a lesser extent if it's cloudy. According to Garmin, the solar variant might extend battery life by up to 6 hours to 32 hours total. I found the benefit to be marginal, particularly in the context of a bike computer where the base non-solar model already has an amazing 26-hour battery life. On a bright but not super sunny 2.5-hour ride, my 840 gained a whopping 6 minutes and 38 seconds. In strong, continuous direct sunlight, the benefit is greater, but not all that much, and England rarely bestows upon me such clement conditions. So, solar charging goes, for me, firmly in the nice-to-have column rather than the must-have. The 840 has more training features, but will you use them? For me, the Edge 830 isn't lacking in training features. It calculates and tracks estimated VO2 max, training load and recovery time and estimates the effect of recent training types on the various aspects of your fitness. However, the Garmin Imagineers have come up with some new features on the 840 that the older device isn't getting. Course demands, real-time stamina, cycling ability, power guide, suggested workouts using a generated periodized training plan based on a target race or event. If you're heavily into training minutiae, then it's worth researching a bit more on the 840's extra capabilities. For the 99% in the rest of us autobus, then I'd suggest the 830 is good enough and sophisticated enough for our day-to-day training needs. The Edge 840 has more buttons, in fact an additional 4 buttons versus the 830, 2 on either side. With the extra buttons, you can now perform a task with either a swipe of the screen or a poke of a button. To be clear, using the 840's touchscreen is easier, quicker and more intuitive than going with the buttons. When you use the buttons for selecting the elements on the screen, a blue box appears around said element, which sullies slightly the 840's refreshed UI. But the buttons aren't there for day-to-day use. If you're a committed buttonphile, save some money and buy the Edge 540. Their purpose is to provide an alternative to the touchscreen when it's raining or cold and you're wearing gloves. Now, I've generally found that the Edge 830's touchscreen performs okay in the wet. Not everyone does. Big gloved operation is a bit hit and miss. So I can see the value of having more buttons as an alternative, even if they do disrupt somewhat the 840's clean lines versus the Edge 830. For the majority of riders, I'd say this is a significant improvement versus the older generation 830 and one worth having. The Edge 840 is a bit bigger than the 830, but screen size and resolution is the same. The 840's extra heft is entirely in the width department. The additional girth accommodates the space needed around the screen for the solar panels, even if you bought the non-solar version, plus the wider bevels generally. But it doesn't get you a bigger screen. The display on the 840 is the same dimension as the 830 and the resolution is the same as well. A display that is okay, but not quite in the same league as the Hammerhead Karoo 2. The 830 is sleeker and arguably, because it's subjective in it, more refined and attractive to look at. All the buttons extrude visibly on the 840, top and bottom of both sides. The 830 only has one button and the inward angle means you can't see it when looking directly at the screen. But since both devices are compact and ultimately attached to a much bigger object, your bike, and you're unlikely to ride with both of them side by side, I can't imagine the size difference being a significant factor in your buying decision, unless the 5 to 10 grams weight saving in favour of the 830 is sufficient to sway you. The Edge 840 has USB-C charging. The Edge 840 uses a USB-C cable wanger, where the 830 uses micro USB, a charging port format whose use was first recorded in the Doomsday Book. The 840 is quicker to charge, the 830 is slower. Maybe this will make a difference if you find yourself frequently forgetting to charge until 5 minutes before your group ride. But it's not like micro USB charging has died out. I have thousands of cables and I accrue more with each piece of random rechargeable tap purchased by my children. Unicorn lamp, anyone? Unless you've embarked on a USB-C only lifestyle, almost as wonky as CrossFit, purchasing the 830 probably won't ruin your quest for charging purity. Battery life on the 840 is longer, but it likely doesn't matter. We've already touched on this. The 840 revels in 26 hours of Garmin claimed battery life for the base non-solar model. With the power of the sun and the spunking of extra moolah on the solar variant, that claim increases to 32 hours. The Edge 830 has 20 hours. For me, all of these battery lives are in the plenty large enough so I don't have to worry about them. Bucket. 20 hours or 26 or 32 can at least accommodate 3 big rides, or probably 4 to 5 if I stop fooling myself that I ride 6 hours on the regular. Essentially, all three computers can support a week's worth of regular riding unless you're a pro, and a weekly electro-juicing is an acceptable cadence for having to plug the thing into charge. So longer battery life on the 840 is, for many, and me, in the nice to have column, rather than I must upgrade right now or I'll scream. 1 column. The Edge 840 has more precise GPS tracking, but navigation otherwise is similar. Software-wise, the Edge 840 and 830 are similar from a navigation perspective. Nothing profoundly new has been introduced. The main change is on the hardware front. The 840 appears to have more processing grunt, meaning route calculation times are quicker. Or maybe Garmin just says it's complete as soon as the first portion of the ride has been worked out. The GPS chipset has definitely been upgraded though, with the 840 now having multi-band GNSS. Whatever that means. This means that tracking accuracy is superior on the Edge 840 versus the 830. Now, I've not tended to have an issue with my 830. Perhaps I don't ride in sufficient urban or wooded locales for this to be a problem. If you do, and you have, then this pippety positioning precision may just be what the Dr. Ferrari ordered. So, Edge 840 versus 830, which should you buy? Of course it's horses for courses. I can't mystically divine which one you should buy. My derriere is punctured with the splinters from the fence upon which it is balanced. But I do have at least one clear message to impart. There is nothing about the Edge 830, the older one, that should prevent you from buying it if that's the way you're leaning. The 830 remains a high quality compact bike computer with a touchscreen I've always got on with. It has loads of training, navigation and safety features, too many to shake my magic selfie stick at. Not a euphemism. It's accurate, connects with all your sensor jobbies, and just works. The Edge 830 will absolutely support your enjoyment and progression on a bike, but the Edge 840 is objectively better. I'm a big fan of the free ride version of ClimbPro, and that's not coming to the 830. Others will value the full suite of buttons on the device, the more precise satellite dragnet, the extra training whiz-bangs. I'm not convinced that solar is a killer feature, but then you can get the 840 version without it. So, as always, if money's no object, then you'd probably plump for the newer 840, and you'd probably be very happy with it. Monty, out.